letting your kids free to try things, take things apart. How does it work? And yeah, just not be so worried about getting things right. Just letting them create.
Laura from Inventors and Makers, thank you so much for coming in.
No, it's good to be here.
You're thinking of the future, right?
Yeah.
And we'll explain what all that means in a second. But you have workshops during school holidays and after schools for children to learn skills that will help them in the future.
Yeah.
And I think we're all guilty of living in the now and not thinking of what things will be.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what it is all about, basically?
Yeah, so Inventors and Makers workshops are for children aged 5 to 11 at the moment, focusing on skills like problem solving, creativity and collaboration, but using ideas from science, technology and engineering.
Yeah.
So our workshops could include things like app design or movie making, robotics, machine building. But the real focus is actually not on those practical activities, but on developing the 21st century skills that I mentioned, so problem solving, creativity, collaboration. Because I think, as you say, we do need to be thinking about the future, particularly for the children today who are going to be having the jobs in the future. And so, we're not a coding club, we're not a Lego club, but we're thinking about a real variety of practical activities that children can do. And really, while they're doing those activities, like making a movie or whatever, behind the scenes what's happening is that they're developing their problem solving and creativity. So sort of the app design is the Trojan horse, but what's going on inside it is that we're developing those skills that they need.
So how are the schools and the teachers and the principals, how are they reacting to you coming with them with this concept of doing this? Because it is technology, and I know that a lot of, like, especially, we're all right, but especially an older generation see anything with a computer screen as negative a lot of the time. So are you getting any pushback?
No, so I mean, I'm not really working with schools very much at the moment. So right now I'm running things that are in holidays, setting up a few things after school wise, because it's a fairly new venture. So really the feedback that I've mainly had has been from parents. And, I've had a piece of feedback, every school should be doing this. This should be part of school life. And I think that's what's actually really difficult. So my background is partly in teaching and, our school model hasn't changed much over the past 100 years.
At all, yeah. No. It's very minimal.
And I mean, I know from being a teacher and having lots of friends who are teachers that not all teachers feel comfortable with teaching some of the technical and ICT skills that they need to be doing with the kids. So I think that actually what I'm doing is kind of a complement to that, because you can't develop creativity and extended problem solving within the 45-minute lesson that our schools use. I mean, it doesn't work.
It's interesting, right? Because I was speaking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and I said that we're talking about, we used to be involved in an ed tech company last year, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were saying, why doesn't primary schools and secondary schools drop something that's archaic, irrelevant, and having even a coding class for 45 minutes or 40 minutes every single day? Could you imagine the talent and giving children the ability to change the world when they grow up through coding? And it's just madness to me that people just aren't doing that in every school.
Well, I mean, without getting onto a whole debate about the government and education policy, I think that schools are trying to put coding in. So I don't know if you know the program Scratch. I mean, every child, it's a MIT developed program, but I mean, the majority of children will have used Scratch in the classroom. So it's like something that all teachers are encouraged to use. There's lots of curriculum. It is quite easy to do with kids as a teacher, even if you don't know anything about it. I think the problem is that it's almost like a tick box of yes, we've done some coding. And actually, increasingly in the 21st century, it's not about what you know, but it's about what you do with what you know. So teaching children to just code isn't enough. 45 minutes of coding, great. But it's a bigger problem than that. It's about using coding to solve problems, not just kind of getting this sprite to dance around on the screen. It's a great start, don't get me wrong. But there's a bigger mind shift that has to happen in schools. I've visited a few schools in America, one of which is called High Tech High, and they do something called project-based learning. So rather than having these kind of short lessons throughout the day, they actually will get wholly involved in a big project. So I think something that was going on while I was there was secondary school children, but they all had to, in groups, make a food van. And so they had to learn everything to do that, like the licensing and the branding and...
It's useful though.
Yeah, I mean, like,
so useful.
you're learning for a purpose. You're not learning because your teacher told you to do something and then 45 minutes later you're switching to maths.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Do you think that will change in the UK? Do you think, because obviously it's, as you say, 100 years, hasn't changed an awful lot. What will it take for all that to be overhauled?
Well, I mean, they say that 40% of jobs could be automated in the next 15 years. And, 50% of companies are going to downscale the number of employees. We've already got huge amounts of outsourcing to overseas markets. Parents, I think, are starting to increasingly feel, what is the future for my child? What is their future world of work? And I think there are a lot of movements around this, like the one I mentioned in America and project-based learning. So there's some push towards it, but the pressure on like testing and accountability of schools and these tick boxes mean that it's difficult to let go and actually do that, because it's so different. It's so different to what's happening in schools now. So, I mean, I hope that it changes, and that's something that I want to do more in the future, kind of work with schools to see how they can build something like this into their curriculum.
Yeah, I seen a stat yesterday, and I have no idea if it's true or not, but it was like 1,000 retweets, so that's what I base my facts on. But it said it was AI has created 3 times the amount of jobs in the last year than it has gotten rid of. Because we haven't got to the point yet where it's completely replacing everything, but we've gotten to a point where people are developing AI to replace everything. So the amount of jobs is actually going up. But no doubt it will hit a tipping point going the other way once the technology is there.
That's the interesting thing. People say, technology is taking our jobs, but actually technology has just changed our jobs. I think in 1900, something like 10% of the workforce was involved in creative jobs, and it's now something like 30%. The low-skill jobs are in danger, but if we can upscale around creativity and problem solving, they're the skills that are going to be used in the jobs that are less easy to automate.
Yeah,
so actually changing what we focus on, and as I said, skills are more important than knowledge now. So changing how we teach, changing education will help us help kids get those jobs that AI is creating, things that just didn't exist when the school model was created.
Yeah. My job certainly didn't exist when my parents were around, it's very strange. But there's about 40,000 people that watch the show, all entrepreneurs. A lot of them are starting to have kids now, or even have kids. What would you say to them? What can they do if they're not around Ealing and they're not, right? What can they do to help train their child or teach their child in a practical and fun way that the child enjoys, learning those skills? What should parents be doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously I've got 2 children myself, so I'm kind of thinking, mine are younger than the classes that I teach, but so it's something that I'm thinking about a lot. And I think it's about a mindset, really. It's developing, I don't know if you know much about growth mindset, but the idea of just give it a go and learning from mistakes.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of children that, go to tutors and especially when you're teaching in a classroom, you see that they just want to get things right.
Yeah.
Children need to learn that it's okay to get things wrong. It's about learning from those mistakes. So there's tons of really simple activities you can do, like from the likes of, building a tower with spaghetti and marshmallows, those kind of classic things that are just so simple, but you're not telling them how to do something, they're solving a problem for
something
themselves.
Like this, is that quite relevant, or is that too high end?
Well, this parents have asked me about these kits, because this is what we use in our robotics class. They're made by Invent Blocks. They're really great if you know a little bit about coding. Like there are a lot of, you can go with Lego type robotics kits. What I think is really cool about these is that they're really good for problem solving. Like you could sit down in a row of computers in a coding class and you could learn to code. But this is kind of, when you use something like this, you're coding for a reason and to problem solve. So we use these because there's no gimmicks. You can see the wires. It's simple. The kids get to know how it all works, right? So the first thing they learn to do is make it go. And then it hits a wall, right? So, okay, what's the problem? How are we going to solve it? Oh, okay, well, let's teach it to stop. Okay, we teach it to stop. Brilliant. But we really want it to stop before it hits the wall. Okay, well, let's put a sensor on it, which is this here, and then it will stop before it hits the wall. Okay, but we need it to keep moving. Okay, well, we'll add a reverse in. So you see there, you're kind of building on solving the problem. So it's really about kind of letting your kids free to try things, take things apart. How does it work? And yeah, just not be so worried about getting things right. Just letting them create.
I love that thing. It's very cool.
I was like in a taxi on the way here, fixing it all together.
So do you use these in the class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had parents say to me, "Oh, it's a shame they couldn't take the robot home with them at the end of the class." I'm like, "These are £130."
Is that how much they are?
Yeah. So I mean, if everyone took one, I mean, there's a box with various other bits that goes in it,
yeah.
right? But I mean, if everyone was taking this home, that's an expensive class.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And I also don't think that these are necessarily what a child could use at home with their parents, because you
Yeah.
have to
To know
kind of like
kinda.
actually know a little bit to kind of
Yeah.
solve some of the problems in it. and
Yeah. So
things.
did you obviously you learned that yourself? Did you?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's the cool thing, I've learned all of this. I'm not a coder,
Yeah.
I'm not a designer or anything like that, but I'm an educator, and so I can teach these classes
Yeah, of course.
and learn things myself, as I go.
Cool. Well, what we'll do is we'll link the website below, because I
Yeah.
know there is a lot of entrepreneurs with kids
Yeah.
watching that are very confused about what to do. So I'll link your website below, Laura. Thank you so much for coming in.
No, thank you very
Cheers.
much. Enjoyed it.